All right, so I guess we're about to start. Welcome everybody. My name is Carlinthia and I'll be introducing the moderator and the panelists for today's meeting. Today's meeting is a Sister and Lay Archivist webinar and it will be led by ACWR's Education Committee. So a few rules before we begin today's meeting. If everybody could mute their microphones for the duration of the presentation, and after the presentation, if you have any questions, then use the raised hand feature on Zoom and you could verbally ask your questions. If you have questions during the presentation, then feel free to type them in the chat and then the presenters will field your questions toward the end of the presentation. So today's presentation will be moderated by Sister Grace, and it will be done by a lay and sister archivist from the Dominican Sisters of Peace and the Dominican Sisters of Grand Rapids. Sister Grace was an elementary school teacher before getting her MLIS at the University of Pittsburgh in 2016. She served her community, the Felician Sisters of North America, as archivist for 7 years. In 2021, she oversaw and moved the development of the new Felician Archive and Heritage Center in Livonia, Michigan, and is currently planning a second wave of the move of remaining materials in the local archives. She's a member of ACWR since 2016 and the Technology Committee, which is now the Education Committee, since 2019. Sister Grace lives in Detroit, Michigan, with 4 other sisters. I presume that's her religious sisters and 2 large dogs. Next, we have Michelle Ganz and Sister Lisa Zuccarelli from the Dominican Sisters of Peace. Michelle is the new director of the archives for the Dominican Sisters of Peace. She's been the director since April 2022. She has a background in academic, museum, private, and corporate archival collections. In her time with the Dominican Sisters of Peace, she's created archival workshops on writing annals, webinars on how the archive functions, as well as the role of archives in healing. Over the course of her 17-year career, Michelle has taken an active role in the archives profession, serving on steering committees, task force, and in leadership roles. Michelle received her MLIS from the University of Arizona in 2006 and her archival certificate in 2008. In 2023, which is very recently, Michelle was actually elected on the Society of the American Archivists Council for a 3-year term. Michelle brings her experience and enthusiasm to religious archives community and hopes to contribute to and benefit from relationships in ACWR. Sister Lisa has been in the congregation of the Dominican Sisters of Peace since 1975. She received her bachelor's in biology, her Bachelor of Arts in Biology and Chemistry from Alberta's Magnus College, and her PhD in Neuroscience and Physiology from New York University. Prior to her appointment in archives, Sister Lisa's ministries were in teaching secondary school and teaching, research, and academic administration at the university level. In addition to science, Sister Lisa has studied music and art extensively and has a special interest in fine arts and antiques. This is really exciting for me to read. It gives me so much more insight into people I thought I knew. Our next 2 are Sister Mary Navarre and Jennifer Morrison from the Dominican Sisters of Grand Rapids. Sister Mary Navarre is a Dominican sister from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and she became the director of their archives in 2014. Before that, she taught in parish schools and later at Aquinas College, which was founded by the Dominican Sisters. Like her 3 sister predecessors in the archives, Sister Mary Navarre had no professional training in the field. She attended conferences and workshops and availed herself of mentors and advisors and did all she could to prepare for the role. Sister Mary has been active in efforts to address the need of safeguarding all the archives of women religious. She's an active participant in ACWR and other working groups. Having lived religious life since 1964, 59 years, she's willing and ready to consult on history and culture of this lifestyle whenever called upon to do so. Jennifer Morrison is the Associate Archivist for the Dominican Sisters of Grand Rapids, Michigan. She was previously the Aquinas College Archivist and also spent 15 years in the Local History Department of the Grand Rapids Public Library. She has a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Arts in Public History. Her career has involved working in museum and historic sites as well as archives, freelancing, giving public presentations, and at least early on, dipping candles for tourists in a long dress. Wait, what is that? Maybe I'll skip this part, or Jennifer could explain it. So please welcome our presenters, Jennifer Morrison, Sister Mary Navarre, Sister Lisa, Sister Michelle Ganz. Wait, I'm sorry, no sister, just Michelle Ganz, and our moderator, Sister Grace. I will pass it on to them. And if you could please, once again, just mute your microphones if you haven't done so.
Okay. So how this will work is I will ask a question, and one of our panel members will answer, and we'll kind of go from there. They'll answer each other, and we'll have a lively discussion, I hope, about how to have a positive working relationship between lay and religious archivists. So my first question is, what makes up the divide between religious and lay archivists? Yes, Michelle.
I think that the big divide is just in the learning about religious life. So like, I am Jewish, so I have very little background in Catholicism. I was a medievalist as an undergrad, but that doesn't really clue me in onto the modern church. So that is the biggest divide, really, is gaining all of that institutional knowledge that comes with religious life.
And I'll also follow that as another lay archivist. Certainly the culture is something I was unfamiliar with. I am not even Catholic, so a lot of catching up to do about all of that, but so curious about it. So we spent a lot of time at the beginning just talking about it all, and long lunches and just conversing. And one of the other things that I think is so different between any other archives I've worked in and the situation here with the archives for congregations of women religious is the whole concept that ultimately the culture is going to go away, and we have to make a decision about where else the material will go. And that's certainly very unfamiliar concept. Normally we're working in institutions with material that we think will exist forever, or hope.
So we've all experienced this gap. How do we bridge that gap, especially in terms of a working relationship between religious and lay? Yes, Lisa, Sister Lisa.
I think for us who are in the congregation, it's really incumbent upon us to be very, very generous with and open to questions, because and sometimes even anticipate the questions, because our lay archivist doesn't even have the language at the beginning to even ask the question. So to be very careful and listen carefully, to make sure that we recognize that there's no question that is silly. We need to realize as sisters that we have called our prioresses, superior generals, mother generals, presidents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we also talked about in the past some of our superiors who are also prioresses in individual houses. So listening to those the refinement of an answer is also important. So creating an atmosphere of openness and willingness to just keep explaining and keep listening and answering as best we can. We can't be too busy to answer a question.
Well, I would add, I often think it's a little bit like welcoming a person into a new country, because the language may be familiar words, but they mean something different in religious life. Most of us sisters who are in archives have been in religious life for over 50 years. And we don't even realize sometimes how, what isn't obvious to a person. And so again, I think you're right, Lisa, to be really a good listener and to be generous with each other. I think in just taking that time for those long lunches to kind of explain things. I think sometimes too, and this is kind of, take this metaphor lightly, but I think we're a little bit like a mafia, the family. So it's in the family and we just do this or we don't do this. And gosh, I don't know, I kind of feel bad for people that have to kind of crash the gates and figure out what the family doesn't do or what the family, does do. We don't murder people, but it's got that tight family thing, that in-house or in language. So again, patience, no such thing as a dumb question, in both ways, because there's a 20-year difference between Jen and I, and she's in another country as far as I'm concerned sometimes. Yeah, so just that kindness and patience and generosity, and yeah.
We've talked about everything from is the word sister capitalized to what do you do if you're an introvert sister and you have to do all these things together? So it's, again, talk about everything.
Yeah.
And then I would say that it goes the other way too. So archivists have their own language, and some of the words would be unfamiliar to someone who doesn't practice archival science. And Sister Mary is so well self-educated, but sometimes we're saying the same words, but it means something very different to each of us. And we didn't really discover that until we started working together.
We anticipated from the beginning when we first talked, before we even offered the contract to Jen, we had a conversation to say what would happen when, and maybe this is a question that'll come up later, when the archivist believes strongly one thing and the director of archivist, like me, who's not an archivist, really doesn't think that's the right way to go. So what happens when we come like this? And most of the time we just stay at the table, keep talking until we can live with the answer. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's really, a difficult situation. So we're still friends though.
Well, there's that whole public-private thing that Michelle and I go back and forth on here. If this is material that you can find in the public domain anywhere, then we can share it with them.
Yeah.
Her stance. Mine is, if you can find it in the public domain, go look for it yourself and stop asking us for it. So we have this push-pull.
Yes,
And I'd
Michelle.
just like to add on to that ultimately when we come to a position where I'm saying one thing and Sister Lisa is saying something else, ultimately we come down on the side of the congregation. So the way I like to see it is I am working for the sisters. So ultimately what they want me to do is what we will actually do. So I know the thing that's been a little difficult for me is, when do I stop sort of fighting the good fight to try to convince everyone to do something completely differently than the entire congregation has ever done before. And it's taken me a little while to kind of get the rhythm of that and sort of where we could push a little bit more and where we need to reel it back a little bit more.
The advantage for Michelle is that I don't know anything about archives. I only came into the role 4 years ago with literally zero background. So we're having a fire drill here.
Let's mute ourselves.
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah, we probably.
I've been in your mother house, Lisa.
I'll
If
step
somebody
out real quick. I'll be right back.
burns
Let me go
toast,
check.
it's a fire drill. It's true.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Really, I've been there with
Okay.
burnt the toast and everybody had to evacuate the building.
Yep.
At the Sisters of Peace.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm sure they'll be back when they can, but we can continue. So what are some tips or tools for, in general, working well together, or maybe more specifically, understanding each other's perspective?
One thing that we did, we took advantage of an opportunity because, you know, when, especially with the COVID, it was just the two of us. And before there were always more people around. And so we were always together. I consider it like a marriage. And we came to the point where we could have benefited from some marriage counseling. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but we took a course in the Enneagram that was offered so we'd understand where we were coming from. So this doesn't have much to do with archivists versus amateur archivists, but with personalities. So we come at things differently, right? So we understand better that we don't have the same like way of approaching the world, and there's no one right way or wrong way, but by understanding where the other person's coming from, it helped us. So I think I would encourage people to take advantage of things like that, where you understand the personality and you know, where a person's coming from. It's just kind of the stuff of friendship or any kind of relationship, really, that you have to figure out where that person's coming from. And then I think you're more compassionate, understanding, and patient with one another. That worked out pretty well, didn't it? The Enneagram.
It's very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle and Sister Lisa, just, I don't know if you heard the question, but it was, what are the tips or tools for either in general working well together, or maybe more specifically understanding each other better?
Oh, I answered my part.
I want to just add on to the last question in terms of like how we come down on a decision. You know, aware that I don't have all the archival standards in my mind or in my experience. I take that very seriously when I hear what the archival standards are. And if I need to go to bat with for the archival perspective with the leadership team, I'm going to do that because we are moving into a much more professional stance with our archives, and we want to be on we want to be on board. I mean, nothing we have here is hidden. It's not, it's, you know, this is not a cave with impenetrable locks on it. And we have in the past, meaning many religious archives, have treated it that way. And so we're very fortunate in our congregation to have a leadership team that actually will listen to both of us. And so, you know, when we can't think of too many things at this point that we've ever, you know, gotten to the point where we can't really do too much about. I mean, we don't know what to do about it, but that's where I think our stance would end up going, is that, you know, what does the leadership team really want us to do with this information? In regard to tips of getting along, yeah, we can go out for ice cream once in a while. That's nice. We haven't had the long lunches yet, but I'm going to ask for that next.
I was going to say, I'm very used to in my career having to defend archival principles and standards to people who just don't have the patience or the money or the time for that. And so I was ready for that, and it was less of an issue in this job than I expected it to be.
As a scientist, we have things we have to do in federally regulated laboratories. So I completely got the whole archival standard thing.
Yeah, and I will have to say that when I first came in, I had a huge, like, 5-point plan to get leadership and the sisters on board with archives, and, you know, had all these arguments to make. And I was so disappointed that I didn't have to use any of them. Actually, wait, disappointed is, I was delighted that I didn't have to use any of them. But that's sort of, I think, the big area where Sister Lisa was really able to help me sort of figure out the speed of the organization. Because I know that when I first came in, I scared everyone with all of my ideas and how quickly I wanted to start doing things. And it took me a few months to sort of understand how much slower everything moves here and sort of find my rhythm. And Sister Lisa was very awesome to kind of help me smooth over the rough edges and to kind of help leadership understand that, I was just very excited and, I have lots of ideas, but they don't all have to be implemented today. So that was really, I think, the most helpful for me in those first couple of months was how Sister Lisa was able to help me navigate just in general how the archive worked.
So another question I have is, how did the congregation, or maybe the sister archivist herself, decide to hire a professionally trained archivist? What role did they want that person to fill?
I could start with, soon after I became the archivist, and I could, as the introduction said, the three people that preceded me did not have archival background. I knew I needed help. And it was a little difficult to persuade the leadership at the time that I needed help, but they consented to an intern from the college, and she was physically strong, which was helpful. She had some instincts for organization, and she was technologically very savvy. She didn't have archival background. And so when she would say, well, what do I do with this? I wanted to turn around and ask the person behind me, but there wasn't anybody there. I knew I needed somebody who knew archival science. So we were very happy that I was able to hire Jen as soon as possible, a paid archivist with training and experience so that the blind wasn't leading the blind. So yeah, very happy. Because you spend a lot of time doing things you don't need to do and not doing the things you need to do. You just waste time and money and energy and resources if you don't have a trained archivist on your ship. Really, it's terrible.
Yes.
And that was Nancy Garson and my experience. We started to go to professional meetings. I did, and she had been to ones for the DAC and ACWR. And the more we listened and heard about the progress of other congregations when they hired a lay archivist, we didn't even talk to each other about it. We both came out of a meeting one day and almost simultaneously said, we need to hire a lay archivist because we have a huge, huge archive. 8 congregations of more than 1,000 years of history. None of it's organized, not only within itself, but it's not organized together. And these are the people that can help us do this in an effective and an efficient manner. And fortunately, our leadership team recognized how big this task was and that we really did need professional help. A permanent professional help rather than just consultants.
And I'd just like to add that the job description that they wrote was exceptional. Like when I saw the posting, I clearly understood what the job was. I clearly understood what they were looking for. And I have applied for hundreds of jobs. And this was one of the clearest job descriptions I've ever run into. And I also like to say that this was the most well-organized archive that I have walked into. I have walked into archives that were managed by other professionals that did not look like what I walked into here. So I feel like I feel like the sisters tend to not give themselves enough credit for the work that you are doing, because everybody knows, that there are professional standards and do things like come to these meetings to try to figure things out. So the sisters do a really wonderful job on their own, and that makes it bringing in a lay person so much easier because I was able to just instantly, slide into the role, and we instantly started working on things and figuring things out. But it was a very smooth transition, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, what are some ways that the sister archivist or the congregation can make the transition of the lay archivist into the archives easier? Yes.
Sister Mary and I had the advantage of knowing each other as I was the archivist at Aquinas College, and so we had belonged to groups together and had been to workshops and other things together. But besides that, I would say the introduction to the culture, which is so different, and lots of talking.
I'm not sure that the sisters could have made me more welcome than they did. I have never received so many lovely to meet you, lovely to see you here than I did in the first week. I really do think that Sister Lisa and Sister Nancy did a really good job of compiling things for me so that when I came in, I could look through the policies, I could look through all the information that we already had. It was together in a binder. And I think that sort of stuff is really important. And then we've sort of built on that together and created an archives manual that has all our policies, our procedures, our workflows. So the idea is that if we both get hit by a bus tomorrow, someone can come in here and immediately pick up the work and continue what we've been doing.
And I would agree that it was a very, very friendly, welcoming community. And I've often told folks, just looking for jobs in general, keep checking the sisters website. They're a great group to work for.
I think so.
We try to be nice.
You are nice.
We try most of the time.
That's actually our other job. Is, I think, as the sisters in the archives, is to help our lay women and men not fall into landmines. And we in the congregation all know where the landmines are. We know the people who are obstreperous. We know the people who are going to push back. We know the people who are going to call 25 times a day because they have a main point that they want to push. And we're able to alert, I'm able to alert Michelle to that, or to explain that, you know, this is probably going to happen a few more times, but then it'll stop. Or, you know, maybe you should tread lightly with Sister so-and-so. She's a lovely person, but this is a particular thing that is very near and dear to her heart, and she's not going to let go of it unless we say, yes, please give it to us, we'll look it over. That kind of thing. So that and I've always felt that's a job of anyone who's been in leadership or has been there before. And your job is to help the new person not fall off the cliff within the first year.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what are some benefits of having both a sister and a lay archivist working together in religious archives? Yes.
They are boundless. Honestly, the biggest help for me is that Sister Lisa can help me understand what specific terminology means, what this term means in relation to this ritual or this rite or these artifacts. And that has really, really been helpful. And she's able to do things like, very quickly answer. And honestly, I will ask the same question 9 times because I just don't remember. And since it's, Sister Lisa lives it, it's much easier for her to, to just explain it to me as many times as I need to. It works. It's really important, especially for things like canon law, because I have zero background in that. So I don't know what, we are required to keep, by papal bull, what we are required to do, according to canon law. And that's where Sister Lisa can really step in. She's really helpful with helping me make connections. And she knows everybody's name, which is the most wonderful thing, because someone asked me if I remembered the names of all of these sisters here. And I said, I sure do. Sister, 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 sister.
Yeah.
And so Sister Lisa's really been helpful with helping me remember the names. This sister started at this congregation and then moved to this congregation, and she did this, that, and the other thing, and switched names 4 times. That's the biggest one, is the different names that sisters have and the ones they use versus the ones they've chosen. And that took me forever to understand. And Sister Lisa was amazingly patient with me as I struggled to figure this out. Also, I discovered there was a period of time where everybody had Sister Mary and then the name. And so trying to figure out if we need to keep the Mary in front of the name as we build sister files or not, those sort of specifically religious life things are things that I will never learn to the level that Sister Lisa has. And that's really where she really supports me in all that stuff that I just can't possibly know.
The names are tricky and they're also important. I was told, the joke was when I came on, never try and describe a sister. You must know her name, because if you describe her, it's going to sound like every other sister. She's little, she has glasses and gray hair. That's
No
all
makeup,
Yeah.
short hair.
Yeah.
We all look alike, right?
So I would say, to be serious, that lay archivists are often normally asked to take on archival material without that kind of explanation and background. So if you work in a public archive, material is deposited and you are left with it, or maybe you weren't there when it came in, and trying to figure out what's going on is something we do and we can do, but it's made so much more meaningful and so much easier when you have the help with the culture. And one of the collections I have done recently is to work through chapter documents, extremely complicated material, and the changes over time, so complicated. And so I was asking questions right and left while I was doing that. And we would not have been able to organize and describe that material as well if it wasn't the two of us working on it together. And if I may go on just a little bit longer, and if I may also then advocate for myself, I do believe strongly that there is a science to archival science, and not just anybody can do it. And too often people think anyone can do it. You just need to understand history, and you just need to play around with some of the documents. And in fact, there is a science to it. And if you don't have that, you do waste time, and you do lose things like context and provenance. So I think that the combination of the sister and the lay archivist really is a good combination.
Right, I agree.
I'd go so far as to say it's actually critical to making the lay archivist role successful, because quite frankly, if I was here by myself without Sister Lisa and Sister Nancy, I would be completely lost. I'd be overwhelmed. I would have no idea what's going on. So I really do think that if your institution is looking to bring on a lay archivist, that you need to keep that sister archivist as well. I do feel like it's like two halves of the same person kind of thing, where between the two of us, we make one complete archivist.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to add a couple. I agree with that. It's like the sister can provide a lot of context, and the archivist provides that much needed science. We need them both. I also just want to go back to something Lisa said about avoiding the landmine. I think that's so true. We can help avoid the landmine, but we can also point to the gold mines. So we have a sister that helps us, Barbara. She's a former prioress, and she's just a gold mine. She's she can help more than I can, because she goes back a little further and her mind is still good. And we have a sister who can identify anybody in a photograph, and it's going to be right. And she's 90 years old, a gold mine. Get her while you can. So yeah, both of those are great. The landmine, avoid the gold mine, tap.
So in what ways can the sister archivist help her leadership team understand the value, expertise, and professionalism of the lay archivist?
Advocate, advocate, advocate. Show them constantly how the mission of the congregation is supported by the archives, because they don't get it They do not get it. But if you can say, this is how we help mission advancement. This is how we gave information to the finance department. This is how we help, this department, that department, do exhibits. Answer queries, especially of the leadership team. Yeah. Can't hear you, Lisa. You're muted. I mean, she's muted. There you go.
The advocacy role is really critical. And I think, I used to say this when I was working in my science department, you have to, it's kind of shameless bragging, but it's not really, you wouldn't have this wonderful book by Sister so-and-so on the history of the congregation if somebody hadn't saved this and organized this material. You wouldn't have that fabulous brochure and the information that came out for the 200th anniversary if somebody didn't spend an hour and a half or 2 days or however long it took in order to give you that material. So that it's not so much our work is important, although that's clearly obvious. Keeping the material in a format where it's easily accessible is the important part. We're just sort of the instruments, the mice that are running around fixing, getting things out of the files, but in some ways, but it's the organization, and the reason they're important, archives are important, is because they will be the final say. And I think that, that leadership team understands that. I mean, we can always tell at least I can, and I'm sure eventually Michelle will, which Mothers General had that sense of history. You can just tell by the letters they saved and the words they wrote and who they contacted and where they interacted during their time as prioress. You can tell that they absorbed the mantle of legacy. And that's what you kind of have to communicate to the leadership team, that they're creating legacy, but on top of that, their job is to protect that which came before them. Now, we didn't have a hard sell. We really didn't. And obviously from the materials we've received from our all 8 congregations, they didn't have a hard sell either, because they kept lots and lots of incredibly important things. Now, whether we kept them in great form or in shape is another story, but they're still there. But helping the leadership team recognize that this is, and I think almost everyone does, this is not just a leadership role for the congregation. It's a leadership role for the church. It's a leadership role for the kingdom of God. It's a leadership role for the world in many ways. That we're a blink in time, and we have to save that blink, because in future, someone is going to want to know what that blink was about.
Right. It's about women's history. It's about US history. It's about church history. It's about our congregational history. And it's amazing. And it's unique and very valuable. And sometimes we have to have people like Michelle and Jen to remind us of that. Because we take it for granted. Oh yeah, she got her doctorate in, chemistry and discovered a forerunner of cancer treatment. Oh yeah, big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. Women didn't even finish high school in that day, and she got a doctorate in chemistry. Come on. This is fun.
Good conversation. That's what I was hoping for.
I hope everybody else has.
So then, what's your vision for the religious archives 5 years, 10 years down the road, for these working partnerships or for the archives themselves? Yes.
So I actually have a 10-year plan because I'm a crazy person who really loves to plan ahead. And what I foresee happening is Sister Nancy is retired, but she's doing it very badly, but she still comes in twice a week. But eventually she is going to rotate all the way out. And then my hope is that Sister Lisa will be with me for another 8 or 9, possibly even 10 years. That's why I said possibly. And then the hope is that once she rotates out, that I can run it as a one-man show, which will be the ideal, because I'm taking into consideration that the median age of our sisters is 84, and the younger sisters are not going to be in a position where they will be retired and can work in the archive for many, many decades. So I feel like we're looking at a point where in 5 to 7 years, we may have to work without a sister archivist, which I am not going to be pleased about, but I feel like Sister Lisa is giving me enough of an education that in 5 to 7 years, I will know enough that I will feel comfortable doing things on my own. And plus she lives upstairs, so I can always go find her if I have a question. But I do think that congregations in general need to be looking at how are we future-proofing the archive, and the lay archivist does a lot to help with that, because I am an outside observer. I can advocate in a way that sisters can. I can brag in a way that sisters can. And so it allows me to kind of think more about the future of the archive when the sisters are no longer around, because that's my main concern is all of these amazing firsts that religious women have done needs to persist beyond the religious. And so that's where the lay archivist can come in, and I can help guide us towards what are we going to do when the Dominican Sisters of Peace finally, ceases to be. How are we going to take care of these collections beyond that? Where are we going to put them? And I know that different groups are talking about different collective archives and, all these different options that we have. And it's really important to be able to bring a lay archivist into those conversations as early as possible, because we will think of things that sisters just won't have the background to think about. And so it's going to be an interesting next decade, but I really do believe that there is life in these collections beyond the life of the religious organization. And I'm probably in a minority here, but I really believe that religious life is going to continue in some way. It's not going to go away forever. It's just going to be smaller groups or maybe different organizations. But there will always be women religious. And so my feeling is there will always be a place for lay archivists, because we will still be here to safeguard this information decades from now, centuries from now.
We all want to.
Now, I'm going to have to leave in a minute, but I would say my vision is a little bit different. One is that when I leave the archives, that the congregation would have enough sense to hire another lay archivist, because those 1,000 years of history and more than 4 million documents aren't getting any smaller. So I think Michelle could use some more help with that. And in terms of where these archives will go, that's really going to depend on how long the congregation it lasts. I mean, we've been doing well with our vocations, but it's not like we're bringing in 15 people a year. So those decisions are going to have to go parallel with the congregation's decisions about its future. But another lay archivist, I think, is in order, and as well to identify over the next few years sisters who are in the congregation who are a little younger, who would have an appreciation for being a consultant. So not a full-time job, not even a part-time job, but people that the lay archivist can feel hopeful to get answers about the congregation as it's evolving, and also people with a deep sense of history. So I hope we can identify those. Thank you very much, and I apologize for having to leave.
Thank you for everything.
Wonderful being
Thank
with you
you.
all.
Bye, Lisa.
Yes,
I'll also answer that question. So Sister Mary and I agree very strongly on our work goals for the next 10 years. We need to arrange and describe physical materials in order to have them ready for what comes next. So we have a lot of physical processing to do, and putting things in order according to a schema, and putting things in order based on collections and provenance. We have already had to navigate some major changes. We had to move out of our mother house, so we had to move our entire archive, and we're in a temporary location, and we'll have to move again. So we've had to do some things like that, and we're looking at that. Where will we go next, and when will that happen? When I was hired, from the beginning, we talked about the fact that Sister Mary is the director of archives, and I would someday take over that role. So we've talked about all kinds of manifestations of that. Will Sister Mary retire? Would she be a consultant? Would we hire another lay archivist? And so we're discussing that kind of thing all the time, and coming up with creative ideas about how to handle that. And then also looking at that next location. Is it a collaborative archive? Which one? Who's building and what's happening there? So all of those things are things we're discussing all the time.
Yes. Amen. Yes. And Sister Mary is getting ready to retire because she had her 80th birthday. Yeah. You're supposed to say you don't look like it. Thank you. I feel like it most days. But I love what I'm doing. And I love that people like Jen and Michelle and others are loving us too, and being respectful of what we have to offer. And that just warms my heart. So I appreciate y'all.
And we appreciate you. Working
Yes,
for
we do.
Sisters has been I'm never leaving here. This is my forever job. It's the best place I've ever worked. I am so excited I'm here. And I think a lot of that is because of how awesome the sisters are, how gracious everyone is, how kind everyone is. I have never met a group of kinder people in my life.
I certainly would echo that. I've often said this is the best job I've ever had, and it's so much based on the fact that I care about this history and the people who created this history. It's such a luxury to be able to say that as a working person. And so yeah, it is a lot about that.
so before we go to questions from everybody else, is there any thoughts, advice, experiences you'd like to share, members of the panel?
Yes, good on us.
Mhm.
Everybody else. Well, because there's
Final thoughts.
final thoughts. Well, we have 2 chats. Have we responded to those, or is that coming next?
It's coming. She just wants to know if there's
Oh.
anything you want to say before
Okay, before we go to
before they
chat.
take the mic away from us.
Okay, no, I'm just filled with gratitude for all of you and ACWR and everybody. I'm in love with you all at the moment.
I just have one other comment that
Yes.
there was one instance where it was actually easier for me as a layperson to get archival material than from the sisters. So poor Sister Nancy has been asking for annals from sisters every year, the entire time she's been an archivist. She's gotten maybe 4 of them over the last 6 or 7 years. I came in and said, everyone's going to do their annals. We did a workshop on them. I got 47 annals this year, right? I was astonished. I suspect I won't get quite that many next year, but it will still be in the double digits. And that's the one thing that I have noticed, is that if you are asking sisters to please do something or give something or contemplate something, if it comes from a layperson, I feel like they listen more. It's almost like I see the sisters as very much being siblings. And so, if your sister tells you to do something, you're like, I don't want to do it, and you sort of forget about it. So that was the one area where me being a layperson was an advantage.
We often talk about the politics of things. Would it be better coming from me, or would it be better coming from you? Yeah.
Yeah, and like, just like in a marriage, sometimes the two couples or even two good friends, you think you know what that person's going to say, so you stop listening. Well, sometimes I say, Jen, it'd be better if you ask her, because she just, she thinks she knows what I'm going to say, and it really works. She's very tactful. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go to the chat then. First, I want to point out that all the questions I asked came from our panelists. I asked them what they wanted to talk about and what they thought would be good questions. So you can thank them for the very insightful questions that we had today. Let's see. First thing seems to be a comment. I'll read it. 2 comments. This is from Holly Fiedler. 2 comments. Everyone isn't an option for me. Second, if it is not possible to have a sister archivist when the lay archivist comes on board, then it is really valuable to have a sister mentor for the lay archivist. I was and still am very grateful for my sister mentor to the community. So it isn't always possible to have that sister archivist, but at least to have the mentor, to have that, or consultant, if you call it that. So that's good.
Agree.
Okay. I also have, from the same person, I also would like to advocate that collection summaries, even brief ones, are written with help from the sisters who were connected with those collections while it is still possible.
So
someone who was in that place or in that ministry,
Jen.
I'm assuming. Go ahead.
I recently told Sister Mary, I think one of the things that you can do, because if she prefers to work more from home going forward, is to write finding aids. So I agree.
Yeah, I fully agree. Sisters have the knowledge of the history of a place far more than I can ever learn, even reading all the books the sisters have written, even, studying all this thing, because I wasn't part of the community. I don't have that memory. And so that is a really important thing that sisters can do for us, is build that context and that history.
Right. Absolutely. And then we do have a question. How does the new lone lay archivist assume his or her authority? And how do you set up good communication with leadership so that documents sent only to members get archived? Yes.
So that is a very big job, but it is very doable. So the first thing you want to do is build lines of communication with your leadership team. So you should have a leadership liaison. So you want to definitely build a really good connection with them. I send my my leadership liaison a weekly report that lets her know, here's what I was working on, here's all the things I accomplished. And that way, if she has questions for me, she can pull it out of that. And then we set up a meeting to talk about that. And then the other thing we did too is that she helped me clarify when I need to take something to her, when I need to take something to the prioress, when it needs to go to the leadership team as a whole. So that liaison is of a critical importance. And then when it comes to getting people to give things for the archive, I have had real success in doing webinars. So what we did is we did one on here's what the archive is, and we just showed off stuff from the archive. And then we did something for Archives Month in October where we had sisters bring their stuff. And so they'd be like, well, this was given to me by, a prioress from the congregation that's now closed. It's really, really important to me. And then I can look at it and go, I agree it's really important, but we have 17 of them already. So we'd be happy to take it. But just so you know, we're going to use something else for it. So you invite them to bring things in, and the most critical thing to do is I would be delighted to take this thing, and then you just take it, and then you decide later what you're going to do with it. I would rather have sisters bring me 700 copies of the exact same thing and say, yes, thank you very much to all of them, than to find out 20 years from now that I don't have a copy of that thing. So it's just making yourself available, making it clear that the archive will take things. And like I said, just take everything that people want to offer you. And then down the line, you could sort of build out more parameters for this is good and this is not. I tried to do that early on and it was too much. So we pulled it back a little bit and just said, just bring the stuff in. So it's a slow process getting them to trust you, but I found that being around really helped you. So I make a point of walking around the building. I go upstairs to the dining room and either eat lunch with the sisters or go up there and grab beverages. And so people can see me and they can ask me questions. And once they realized who I was, people ask me questions constantly when I'm walking down the hall. And so it's a matter of building that rapport, but it's not going to happen overnight. And if you need one-on-one help with this, please email me and I will help you directly.
I was just thinking, I'm going to need to learn this someday. And so I'm thrilled with your offer, Michelle. And I will just add quickly that my title from the beginning was Associate Archivist, not Assistant Archivist. And that was meant to reflect the fact that we both have an equal but different contribution. And I do think when my title changes, that it will be at least something of a challenge, because Sister Mary is so ingrained and people are so used to communicating and working with her. So I think it'll be something I need to learn.
Right, I may have to take a long, time away, maybe Ireland or someplace, and then they'll have to refer to Jen, don't you think? Yeah, even now, I mean, I struggle with the fact that people that live at the mother house will refer to the archivist who's still there 2 times ago, and they go to her, and I go, wait a minute, I'm the director of archives. But anyway, keeps you humble. But that's
Well, I
a
don't
good question, how to, but having that liaison is important. Meet regularly. We meet once a month and we both go to those meetings so that we're all on the up and up, and, and I often will, even like this morning, somebody wanted me to look at some, I said, I think Jen actually is the one you want to talk to. And I just keep bumping things over her way, and hopefully people will catch on that she actually knows what she's doing, and you're much better off going to her than me most of the time. I hope this has been helpful for folks.
Well, I don't see any more questions or comments in the chat. I don't see any. Oh, there's a raised hand. Helen, please.
They've stayed on, that's good. 28. It's a good sign.
Oh, you're muted.
But
You're on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
I was wondering whether or not Mary, since you're the only sister that still here of the panel, did you have like a consultation with somebody to assess your needs before you hired a lay archivist? And maybe Michelle can answer that too if she knows.
well,
And as far as like what
right.
you needed and the kind of person you needed, whether you needed a part-time person, a full-time person.
Yeah, we
you know.
did hire a consultant, Ellen Pierce, and that was very helpful. But I was so biased toward this lady that I'm afraid I stacked the deck in her favor and don't regret it. She had everything we needed. There was another person that was a major other possibility, but that person's strengths were the same as mine, where her strengths were what we really needed. But I think very good to get a consultant.
And she helped you decide to hire somebody.
In the first place.
Yeah.
She pretty much, she visited all the Dominican, or almost all the Dominican congregations to do a feasibility study. And we all learned so much. Following that, I think many of us did hire or, got serious about hiring a person with the background, because we began to realize that she concluded that all of us were in need of professional archivist. Yeah.
We did the same thing. And it was actually Ellen Pierce who came to visit us as well. And I've read the report that she generated, and it was a really solid report. She laid out exactly what everybody needed, what you needed to do, what you didn't want to do, what to look for, classes to take. And I believe that she is still doing consulting work. So you can reach out to her, and I think she's in Ohio this month, and then she's going to be in Georgia next month, I think. But reach out to her. She is wonderful. It will cost you a little bit, but it's worth every single penny to have her come out.
How long did she spend at your archives to assess your needs?
She came and spent the better part of a week with each of us. One of the nice things about Ellen is that after that, she sort of does pro bono work, virtually. I mean, I would often say, what do I do in this case? And she would get back to me right away. And she's very, I thought, reasonable in her cost.
Thank you.
And I think ACWR recently published.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add to Sister Mary's thing. Somebody asked about the consultant. It's Ellen Pierce, but ACWR now has a consultant directory. So there are a list of consultants you could look through and see who's closest to you, and they could give you that information.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't speak for you guys, but I'm on the consultant list. So Sister Lisa and I can come out and help you figure out what you need to do. And we won't charge you.
And Carlinthia adds about consultants in the chat. Maybe you saw it. The consultant also helps in drafting job descriptions and setting salary range, helps decide where to post the job and what interview questions to ask, etc. So they're very helpful. Okay, Holly, another question?
I would just add that, for instance, we have Veronica as a consultant, and she's done needs assessments. So that is possible too, that somebody can come out and look through your archives for a needs assessment and help you with that. And it's very valuable information. We're very grateful.
Consulting is a valuable service. Is that a hand up, Margie?
Yeah, are you going to go overtime? Because I'm scared to start saying something.
I thought we had until 4 o'clock if we needed it. I don't think we will need it, but my point is that we have time.
Well, okay, we're on the West Coast. We're in Southern California, and we just hired a lay archivist. She's hiding there, Erin Donnelly. And our situation was a little different because we're very small, Sisters of St. Louis. We're a small community here. We're not a region anymore, but our institute is still large. We have sisters in Ireland and in 3 or 4 countries in Africa, and 2 in Brazil. England and France have already completed, and we are completing within the next 2 years, maybe 3 years, here in this community in Southern California, which is actually the United States Brazil community. And we had the fortunate luck of getting to know through ACWR Nadia Nasser, who is the chief archivist in Santa Clara University, and they are accepting women religious archives for future storage. So it's been a long process, but she was actually our consultant, and she helped also with the job description, and she's helping mentoring us all along. Just wonderful, besides other mentors from ACWR. And I was told in a way it was good that we hadn't hired a lay archivist until we knew where our archives were going to go for the future storage. Because if we had, we might have organized them in a way that would have wasted time, and that the actual Santa Clara University, there's a name that what you call whatever they have there, the storage, they would require. For example, even digitization, we were told, no, we don't have to do that. They are going to eventually send our collection, which is small in comparison to some of yours, to a place back east that will be, it'll have the opportunity to be digitized. So all that was lucky, because we didn't hire someone before we actually knew where they were going. So that's our experience. But thank you. This has been wonderful, and I hope we have another one. I think it's wonderful, and I'm glad that you're Michelle, and I don't know if you are the other consultant, the other lay archivist, are on the consultants, because I think it's very good for other archivists, lay archivists, to maybe get in touch with you. So thank you very much.
And Carlithia just posted the ACWR consultant directory, which was just developed. It's in the chat, and you can download the document from there if you're looking for it. Any other questions or comments from anyone on the call? Well, thank you so much for your time and your attention and your excellent questions and participation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Our next webinar, I think, is on June 28th. I know there's one with CWR and ACWR. So that's the very much next, same month. That's the next one coming up. And the Education Committee will continue to organize and put together these webinars that you'll be invited to. Well, have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.